starring Mike Maadarani.
Sound check is good.
Sound check is excellent. We can hear you in your room.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining this morning, this afternoon, or this evening from wherever you are. We're going to spend the next 50 minutes or so talking about adaptive cards. Quite a bit of demos we're going to go through here. Feel free to interrupt me anytime you have a question. I will be happy to answer, because answering the question during the demo is much easier than answering it at the end of the demo, so we don't have to go back to the demo. So let's make it interactive and talk about adaptive cards. Before we get there, you have seen this slide, and for this many times this morning, you're going to see it all day. Please, this is a great organization to support. So if you want to have, if you can basically donate to this foundation, it would be awesome to do. This is the link or the QR code if you want to scan it and donate. That would be very much appreciated. Also, quick thanks to all the sponsors that is helping to put this event together, along with the organization committee. I do this kind of event as well. I have similar events in my area, and without any sponsor support, really can't put them together. So please visit them in the channel, dedicated channel, and see if you have, if you want to have any chat with them, that will provide any solutions to you, whether it's services or products. And the last is, this is very important for the event organizers and for the speakers as well. Please give us your feedback. Give us a feedback on the session. Give a feedback about about my session as well, about the event. This is the only way we can do better in the future. Everyone has always the room to do better. This is how we can improve. So please, any feedback would be much appreciated as well. A quick intro about myself. My name is Mike Maadarani from Ottawa, Canada. I am a Microsoft MVP, been an MVP for 7 years right now. I focus only on SharePoint and Teams and OneDrive, all the collaboration features in M365. My contact info on the screen if you have any question during the presentation, like I mentioned, and after the presentation, if you think about any question, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I have also a podcast, m365voice.com, with more MVPs on it as well, that we discuss every week any question from the audience. So we pick a question and we answer that question, and we'll talk about this topic. m365voice.com is a way to go and look at the latest updates from the platform. So enough about this marketing thing. So let's get into the topic. So we're going to go into the overview of comparing some of the cards as well. Because it's actually very important to go and look at the cards and what kind of different cards we have. And then we're going to go into the designer and some demos. So what is a card, for example? A card is a UI. A card is a user interface container for a short or related pieces of information. For example, a card can have graphics and have buttons. You can have multiple properties. You can have attachments. It's a way to kind of promote or send a message to anyone, anywhere. It does not have to be only in Teams, anywhere, with some promotions to it. It's basically making it a little bit more interactive. So rather than just sending text messages or sending some specific long, boring text about specific things, you can have cards that can be very, very interactive. So we have multiple different categories of cards that we're going to go through, but we're going to focus on adaptive cards only today. So one of the cards, for example, what we call it a hero card. For example, you can think of a card as a response to a user question or a setting. That card can respond directly to a question like, for example, let's say, how many open bugs do I have? Or a condition like, send me a list of open bugs that I have at 9 a.m. every day. So you can kind of interact with it. So basically, it can be a bot in the background that will answer back, or it can be some system or some integration between Power Automate and other things. That's what we're going to focus on. So you can design the card any way you want. You can have, like I have on the screen, it can be a hero. This is one of the largest cards. Basically, it consumes a lot of space here. It's similar if you are in Microsoft, in SharePoint Online, where we had used the hero web part where you can scroll through it. This is very similar to it. It is best used for articles, long descriptions, so you can go and basically have a small snippet of it and then click on the item and opens up the actual item. You can have a thumbnail, for example. So it's more for short, what I call them like short and sweet cards or information that you want to display. So it's like a thumbnail. It's very descriptive, very small picture, some information on it. And those are the type of cards that you can, once you design your cards, you can actually go into it. Some cards, for example, they will require you to sign in. So before you actually do something else, it will require you to sign in because it might be integrated with a different cloud. So a sign-in card is one of the options we have. We can have a carousel card that you can scroll down, scroll left and right with it. You can have a digest card, so best for use digest, exactly how it says. And whenever you want to use it, we'll view multiple cards at the same time. So instead, for example, to have the carousel that you're going to have to scroll through the carousel, you can have a digest that basically it's, again, meant for news and events, for example, and you can go scroll through it from top to bottom. Connector cards that will basically have a connector to other systems. Office is one of them, and adaptive cards. And I'm not going to focus much on this slide for adaptive cards because the entire session is about adaptive cards. We can have a list, bubble merge card, whatever it is. It's a lot of different options we have in cards. But let's see what adaptive cards are. So in early 2019, or somewhere around 2019, adaptive cards were introduced, but they were only for display. So basically, we take that information and we post that information into Microsoft Teams, and everyone loved it. Like we really like this is really cool how it actually interact with us. But we wanted more. We did not want only a way for the information to be displayed or posted into Microsoft Teams, for example. We wanted more way to interact with it. I want to send information back to the adaptive card. The adaptive card will receive that information. It will interact with my response. It goes and does something else, and it come back, and then it will respond back to basically what I have from I inputted from myself. It is a really cool way for me to interact, integrate, and connect systems together. And it's all of that from a technology point of view. It's all JSON command and a JSON code in the back end. I connect it to a Power Automate that is a flow running in the background that's going to do all this thing for me. But for me, I used to be a developer. I don't develop much anymore. My development skills as extends to like PNP, PowerShell. But I want to do this. I really want to do this, and I call myself right now from an IT admin, more like a citizen developer. So I don't really, not a hardcore developer anymore. So how do I take advantage of this? So we have ways to do it without really developing code, without really know how to build JSON code. Because for me, I'm not really interested in learning this anymore. So how can I build something without relying on developers if I want to? Or if I am a developer, I can do the same thing. I can use the Schema Explorer. I can use a Visual Studio Code Previewer that I'm going to show you. And I'll be able to go and build really cool interactive cards. I'm going to go through that actually today. So I'll show you exactly how things are done, how we can go and interact with those adaptive cards, and how things are going to work. So we have three things. We have three things when it comes to adaptive cards that we can categorize, or I categorize it that way. One is posting information. So let's take a look at these three in actions: post info, integration, and embedded AC designer. AC is here. It refers to adaptive cards. In my case, it is AC, just as a short term for adaptive cards. So let's start with the first one, posting information. Starting with this display, you can insert, for example, an adaptive cards into Teams. You can share data across cloud services like post relevant status updates. You can respond to targeted queries, mash up data in Teams report. But the best part of this, it gives you information that gives the user access to the information that we're looking for. So they're not going to hunt on the information. Instead, I'm taking that information and posting it to it. So in today's scenario, for example, then the first demo I'm going to go through is publishing data from SharePoint to Teams. This is a very common scenario we have in SharePoint and Teams today. I'll be part of a team, but I want to get data from a different SharePoint site that I don't have access to it. What is the best way to do it today? If we don't use adaptive cards, is I'm going to go, or someone will have to give me access to that SharePoint list, so I can go and have a view-only option to it, for example. So I have to go into the SharePoint security settings, in the security schema, and someone has to add me to that SharePoint site, so I have a read-only version to it. What if I don't want to do that? What if I don't go through the trouble of doing it and give access to people to my SharePoint list, but I want to get information from there? So what we're doing today is I'm going to go and publish data from SharePoint into Teams through adaptive cards. Let's get into the demo here. I have to do this too. There we go. So first thing first, what I'm doing today, I'm doing the first demo, I'm using Power Automate to go and look at getting information from a SharePoint list into a Teams channel. One thing I want you to look at here is, I'm assuming you can still see my screen, so I'm sharing this whole screen here, is this URL is going to be your best friend. So if you look at the adaptivecars.io, so above here, adaptivecars.io, I will put that in the chat as well. This is something that you want to remember to have. This talks to you about the actual adaptive cards, but a couple of things you're going to look at. One is you have an option to go to the Schema Explorer, and you have everything if you're really interested about the adaptive cards, all the Schema Explorer here. I am not interested in that, but yeah, it's a really, really good thing to learn as well. But this is where I jump right away. I just go into the designer. This is where I go and build my actual adaptive card. So when you click on the designer, it's going to start creating, it's going to show you the kind of give you a suggestion about an adaptive card that you're going to build. So it's good to understand this interface. It's really, really easy to understand it. I really don't care much about the code here. It's building the code for me on the fly in the bottom here. So this area here that you see the card payload editor, this code here, this is the JSON code I'm talking about that I'm not going to actually edit myself. All I care about is I want to design this card. I want to design this card. I want to go get information from SharePoint into this card. So a few things we're going to see here. One is I want you to learn it. The adaptive card is not only for SharePoint. Sorry, it's not only for Teams. It can be, you can select any app to host that adaptive card. So you can target the app here. Bot Framework, Web Chat, Outlook, Microsoft Teams, Dark Mode, Light Mode, Cortana, Windows. So we have multiple options here. One thing you want to pay attention to is the target version on the right-hand side here. So this target version, it depends on the hosted app here, where is you're going to host it. This one will change the target version. So if I select Teams Dark Mode, for example, you will see that the target version will automatically change to 1.2. If I go manually change it to 1.3 or 1.4, I'm going to get a message that is not supported by Teams. 1.4 is not supported. Anything 1.2 or before, it will be supported. So if you do it 1.4 and you copy it and then I'll show you how to do it and take it to Teams, it is not going to work. It is going to fail. My team is light mode here. So actually, I'm going to just stick with this. I'm going to change it manually here from 1.3 to 1.2. But a few things you want to learn about adaptive cards here. So this is your card itself. This is your visual card that you have here. And this is on the right-hand side is your data structure, your card structure. And beside your card structure here on the far right is your element properties. So here, this is your adaptive cards. This is basically every time I select something, it will be selected on this in the card itself here. So I have a text block, for example, and then I have a column field, another column field, an image, a column, a text block. So every time I select something, it will select it on the right-hand side here. I have a fact set. We'll talk about what fact sets are. I have a couple of buttons as well. So for me, my use case today, my demo is to take an item from a SharePoint list and automatically send it to a Microsoft Teams channel as an adaptive card. It's going to be posted there. So in this case here, I'm going to change, for example, the adaptive card text block here. So this text block here, it has the text in it is, for this one, is variable called title. I'm going to change it to update from SharePoint. Then in here, the whole text block here, I don't really need it. I don't need the user here. I just need the information that's coming from SharePoint list. So I'm just click on the X and remove that. This one here, I'm going to put placeholders here, and I'm going to call this one description. These things are going to be updated dynamically from the SharePoint list item. So when I send that list item to the Power Automate flow, I'm going to grab all those variables. So keep in mind, those are the variables I'm going to get from SharePoint and automatically post them. So I'm going to have description, for example, as the item. If I go into the fact sets, those are basically, think about fact set as a group of multiple items grouped together. As I said, I can stack them on top of each other. For example, I'm going to have a fact set is what I'm going to bring back. Let's take that as an example. Think about it in what I have in SharePoint. Let's bring back, of course. Typically, every SharePoint item has a title. So let's go and bring a title. I can add a new fact set. I'm going to have an impact, for example. I'll show you what that means. It just build the actual SharePoint list. I know exactly what that is. And I'm going to have a cost estimate. So this is a cost estimate. So these are the text title, the field titles of the things, the fields that are going to come from SharePoint, and everyone is going to have a value. So for now, I'm going to put a placeholder. I'm going to change those. So for me, I'm going to just put a placeholder here. I'm going to say title variable, VR title. I'm going to have VR impact. I'm going to have VR cost. Those are placeholders for me that I'm going to change them later on. Then the next thing in the adaptive card, I have those two buttons. But remember, this adaptive cards that I'm doing is just posting information only. So I'm posting information to the Microsoft Teams channel. I am not interacting with the adaptive cards yet. So for now, I am going to remove them. And instead, I'm going to click on add an action here. And then I'm going to say open URL. What it is, this open URL is, I want to call it like open from SharePoint. So once the adaptive card posts that item into SharePoint and Microsoft Teams, I want to click on that link and it will also actually open the item for me. So I'm going to call this open SharePoint item, for example. Open SharePoint item. The document URL. The document URL is, the icon URL is, if you want to put an icon on it, so just make it a little bit more graphic, has some graphics in it. But as you can see, it is a URL. I cannot actually upload an image to make it as an icon. So we can click on the icon, it will actually open up the actual URL. So instead, what I can do is, actually, let's do it from here. It's easier. Let's go into Google and Google something called open file icon. We'll take this, and I'm just really gonna right click here, and I'm gonna copy the image link. So I'm gonna copy the image link here, and I am going to paste this link here. So when I do this, here we go. It added this icon URL. Yes, that icon URL might change, but for now, for my demo, it's going to be a demo. But in the future, if you have something that you want to, that you build in, make sure that you have a copyright for that icon, for that image. You post it maybe somewhere on SharePoint, and you copy that URL so that way it sticks and you don't lose that URL. And this is the actual URL of the SharePoint item we're gonna actually open. For now, I really don't know what it is. It's gonna be dynamic, but this is required. It is a required field for me to actually make sure that it works, or I will be able to copy that or use that. So for now, I'm just gonna put a Microsoft .com as the URL, but I'm going to change that. So every time I do something here, it updates my code. You can see here, I have the, let's just make it a little bit bigger if I can here. Increasing in size, that's fine. So if you can see here, for example, I have the title, the variable title, the impact, the cost estimate. So whatever I did here, it has already updated everything here. You can see that everything from the open action URL, action open URL, it already updated that. So once I am happy with this, I can copy this JSON code and use it in my flow. A couple of ways. You can go and click on copy. You can say copy the card payload here. You can click on that and it will copy it. Or you can also, the keyboard lover, Control-A, Control-C will work as well. So let's copy that. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to jump into my flow side and start actually building my flow to publish an adaptive card into Teams. So I have my flow here. Make sure that you are in the right environment. So always make sure that you select the environment that is the same as your SharePoint. For me, I have in this list, I have a list called PCO. So this PCO has a list of, we have some constructions going on. We're tracking all the items in all the extra, all the records in a SharePoint list. So I want to publish some of this information into Microsoft Teams through an adaptive card. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a flow. I'm going to come to my Power Automate here, and I am going to my flows. Clicking on my flows, I'm going to create a new one. So I'm going to go and say new flow, and I am going to select an automated cloud flow. So I clicked on that. I'm going to skip here because it's a small screen. It does not give me all the options that I want to. So I'm going to skip this trigger. So I'm going to, what kind of trigger I have here? I am going to go and what I'm going to say here, automated from blank. So what is the trigger here? So the trigger is, it's going to be a SharePoint item. So I'm going to have something happen in SharePoint. I'm going to do it manually for now, but something happened in SharePoint. If you update an item or create an item, you wanna do it in you wanna trigger that flow. So I'm going to go and select SharePoint, and this is the connector in SharePoint, and I say for a selected item in this case. So I'm going to go for a selected item, and when I select that, I'm going to go and pick my SharePoint site. So I'm going to go and click this SharePoint site when it opens. It was sales and marketing here. And I have to pick a list name. So this is the list name, the PCO list that I have showed you. So now it's going to go get basically the trigger of actually initiating this workflow. It's coming from the PCO list in that SharePoint site. The next one is, the next step is I'm going to get that item. So if I am doing it manually, if I want to send it to Teams, or I can do it automatically on item updated or item created, doesn't really matter. In this case, just I don't want to wait until things happen. I'm just going to, in this demo, I'm going to do it right away. Same thing, I'm going to go, what is the action here? I'm going to be bringing it from SharePoint, and it is going to be a get item here in this case. So I'm going to go get a specific item. I'm going to go get item. And then here, what's going to happen, I'm going to go again, what I'm going to get the item from, I'm going to get it from SharePoint. So go into the SharePoint list, SharePoint site, pick up the exact SharePoint list name, and the ID here, this is where things start to come as dynamic if you haven't seen Flow much. The ID here is the ID of the one I'm going to initiate it from. So it's a dynamic one. So now I have, the trigger is that SharePoint list. I got the item from the SharePoint list. I'm going to have to pass it into Teams. So the next step is Teams. What I'm going to do in Teams, I'm just going to select the Microsoft Team connector here. And inside Team, I am going to post an adaptive cards to a channel. So you can search for it. So let's go search for adaptive cards. So I have a few things in adaptive cards, and today we're gonna select post your own adaptive card as the flow bot to a channel. You can post it to a user. We're gonna talk about wait for response and what that means. But for now, we're posting it to a channel. So I'm gonna click on that. It is gonna ask me which channel do you want to go to. So let's see here. What do we have? Got sales and marketing, project 8. What's in project 8 here? So it's not much. Okay, let's use that project 8 team. So let's go and look at project 8. And which channel? Let's load the general channel for now. And this is the message of the adaptive cards. Now, remember I have copied from the payload and the payload from the adaptive card designer. I just copied again just in case you lost it. And all I'm doing is I'm pasting it here. Come on. It's not pasting. All right. Let's try that again. Control A, Control C. Post your own adaptive cards as a float or bot channel. There we go. Could be a copy-paste issue here. So this is here the same JSON that we have here. It's exactly the same. The only thing that you see here is very, very long. You see there's a lot of A's. Is actually the URL of the icon, nothing else. So here now, I want to get some dynamic content from the SharePoint list item based on those things. So I have also, I've got my item here from this step. So I got the item, I have to pass it here. And you see here, you have a lot of dynamic information. So let's go through it. So the description, for example, you remember that I changed the description. I added a description here. I'm gonna change it. So just delete this. And I'm gonna just click on description. Sometimes if you're not in the right place, it will not paste it properly. So let's click here, click description, and it's not pasting it for me. All right, and let's try one more time. Let's get out of this. Sometimes you get out of it and comes back. Kind of refreshes it and it will allow me to kind of go into the dynamic. Click on, here we go, description. Just a little slow today. I'm gonna go and remove the variable title. Remember, I want to get the title dynamically. Click on title. Come on. That is gonna be painful today, I guess. And I have to do it this way. I have to go and click on this. Let's see if I do this and then it does it for me. There we go. Let's do the very old way. The impact, I'm just gonna delete this. I'm gonna go and look at impact value here. And the cost estimates, I'm just gonna delete this. I'm gonna look at cost. Then I can paste it. Here, cost estimate, even though if I go into my PCO, it is a currency. When you do it like that, it's not gonna bring it as a currency properly. It's just gonna bring it as a number. So also a good way for me to do it is I can put some expression, I can format it. So instead of having cost estimate, let's actually remove that and click on inside those double quotes and click on expression. And I'm gonna go and what is it called again? Format number. And from a format number, I'm gonna go and format the cost estimate. I'm gonna add it here. So here it's already built in my expression automatically. So it's getting the cost estimate. And I wanna format it in a specific way. So I'm gonna put single quote here. It's gonna be $, like a number here. This is 3 numbers, .00. And then I click on OK, and then it will format it for me. So I click on this. It's getting the actual cost estimate and I formatting it in a specific way. And the last, excuse me, and the last thing I wanna do is remember that we set the open action, open SharePoint item. I want the actual item to open when I click on it. And we placed a placeholder here for the URL, and we're going to have to come back to it. So this is it here. I'm just remove the Microsoft.com website, and I am looking for. I just need to get out of this, otherwise it's going to update the wrong one. Click on this again. And I am going to, I'm just going to look at item here. It's not, what is the URL? Let's try to do it manually here. URL, it's, come on, get out of here. All right, update. Sometimes it's best just to not fight it, put the wrong one in and come back to it. I'm just going to look at looking for the URL. So item URL here. Item URL. Sometimes it is, when it's long, it is frustrating where it puts it. It's just putting it in the wrong place all the time. Oh boy. All right. It's Friday. That's how it is. What happens on Fridays. So let's go, and I'm gonna skip this for a bit because it's acting up. One thing I want you to remember is when you place your adaptive card here, when you build your adaptive card, a couple of things you're going to look at. I know I promised you we're not going to look at code, but we kind of have to look at a little bit here. When you build the actual adaptive card and you have the payload, it puts the schema and the version at the very, very bottom. This is a tip. This one is not liked by Teams. If when you try to post this adaptive card into Teams, if it doesn't find these two at the beginning of the adaptive card, at the beginning of the JSON, it's going to bomb. It's going to tell you, I don't understand this. So you're just going to cut that and paste it at the beginning, and that's all you have to do in terms of coding. And let's go down here and see if we can update this URL. Click on this. There we go. Now it wants to update it. So perfect. So now I'm grabbing the item URL. I'm grabbing all the information from the SharePoint list item. I'm just going to name this. I'm going to say post item from SharePoint to Teams. And I am going to save it. So once that is saved, so we'll wait for a bit for it to save, and we will be able to use it. I'm just checking no questions. Good. So go back now into the SharePoint list. I'm going to refresh this. Once I refresh it, I can go and let's select something that has some description in it and some numbers. So let's go into this one. I'm going to select this item. I'm going to click on Power Automate. And here we go. This is my actual flow that I just created. And I am going to click on Post Item from SharePoint into Teams. And it's going to go and establish that connection. First time doing it, it's going to be a few seconds. It's telling me that it's signing into SharePoint and Microsoft Teams. Click on Continue and run the flow. So I can come here if I want to. I can go into the actual flow and it will show me that it has succeeded. It only took 4 seconds. Let's look at, here we go, perfect. So project 8 folder, it was empty before. And as you can see that the title that we use is the update from SharePoint. This is the description of the actual item. Look at the description, is actually the same thing. We look at the actual title. It should be hard hat order, and it should have an impact. It's a cost here and the actual cost estimate. You look at that, hard hat order, cost, blah, blah, blah. I have the actual button that I said, open SharePoint item. I click on it. It will take me right away to that SharePoint item.
So the financial, there does not appear to be an.
Is that a question?
I think we're good. Sorry about that. There was just a mix on the microphone. Please
Okay, no
proceed.
problem. So this is demo one that I can take anything from anywhere if I want to and post it in SharePoint. For example, I have this in my sales and marketing. I have an automated flow that posts an adaptive cards about the weather on a daily basis. It's today it's 70 degrees and rainy in Ottawa. Yesterday was hotter and sunny, so you can do whatever you want. How did I learn this? So a couple of things I want you to look at before we go into the second demo is just go and Bing anything that says, for example, you can search for adaptive cards with Power Automate. It's a lot of tips here, a lot of information we can have. So how you can create model flows with adaptive cards. There's a lot of examples here, what you have to do. For example, we can see that we have candidate updates example here. Overview with adaptive cards with teams. Here we go. There's another one here of teams. It tells you exactly which each action happens with teams. For the one that we did, for example, we are posting to a team channel. The next one is we're gonna work with this exact example is post an adaptive cards to a bot as a bot to a team channel and wait for a response. And we're gonna talk about that. So there's tons of examples here, and it actually gives you the code as well. So if I go and which one I want to show you, I'm going to use this lead collection as an example right now. I have already the code. I copied it from here. The daily weather, for example, this is what you've seen in my other channel. It's really a really good way. This is how I started. This is how I actually learned about adaptive cards. It's really, really easy. Nothing too complicated, and it gives you tons of examples. So with that, if we look at where we are right now, let's go through it quickly. So we've posted the information first. The next one is I want to do a lead generation in Microsoft Teams. This is a really good example. For example, if you have Dynamics 365 and you want to integrate it with it, you have your Office 365 users. They're used to using Teams, and they really don't know Dynamics. They don't know how to use Dynamics, but you need to give them access to update some lead generation. You're going to have to go through, for example, the training. You're going to have to train them. You have to assign them a license. You have to support them that way. It is costly. It is expensive. It takes time. They may not want to really be in Dynamics 365 because they really don't like it. They want to stay in Teams. So what about if I can develop this adaptive cards that I can integrate Teams with Dynamics 365? And this is what we call is the form integration, where the adaptive card is interactive right now with the user. So it's not only about posting the information, but actually waiting for that information to be responded back from the user and do something about it. So let's do that. Let's jump back into our tenant here. Let's go close a couple of things here. I don't need this one anymore. I'm going to create another flow. So I'm going to go. So this is, for example, my flow about this flow here about the weather that I just created. I'm going to go and create an instant cloud flow because of the lack of time. We don't have a lot of time. I'm not going to go into Dynamics and send it back. I'm just going to call it as an instant, and I'm going to manually trigger that flow but I just want to simulate that behavior just for the lack of time. And from here, I am going to be basically I'm going to go and post this information into Teams. So it's not triggered by anything. Typically, you can trigger it by Dynamics 365 or by anything else, but I'm going to manually trigger it right now. So in this example as well, I'm going to go and post an adaptive card. So I'm searching for an adaptive card, and here I'm going to say, post an adaptive card to a team channel and wait for the response. So the actual flow does not complete until the user says something. So I'm going to do that. Which team I'm going to go? I'm going to go with the actual same team here. Mark a project team, and then I'm going to select the general channel. And from here, I have the code. So this code here, let me just pull it back. This code here that you see on the screen is the code is from the website, but I'm going to manipulate it a bit. So I'm going to go Control-C, and then I'm going to paste it here. A couple of things you want to do here. If you want to update the message area, think of this. If you don't, this is basically a message that you're gonna post to the team channel after you submit the information. So I'm submitting a lead generation from Teams into Dynamics 365. But if I don't want to update the message and I replace it with something else, the screen is going to refresh without any information, like the card has been, or the lead generation has been submitted or something like that. So what I'm going to say here, I'm going to say submitted, for example, by me. And here what I'm going to say is I want to replace or update the cards. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to tell you why you have to say yes in a bit. And I'm going to go, and because this message is only one line and I cannot do much with it, I want to have more information when I update the message, when you send it from Teams. I'm going to just post a message, because when posting a message into Microsoft Teams, I have more flexibility. Like you can see here, I can format it, do it any way I want. So instead of relying on just one line that does not give me a lot of information, I'm just going to post a message into the same team channel right away. I'm going to say here, for example, lead generation submitted by, and I'm going to put some dynamic name here. Let's say user principal name. Let's do something else here. What is it going to be? Username, same thing as up there. I'm going to say lead details. I'm going to format it, for example, here. And I click and I say first name, or for the lack of time, first, last, email, and phone number. One thing I want you to show you as well, you may not know exactly how this card looks like. So we can go and copy this, copy C, and paste it into our designer here. So it's not only one way. If you build the actual card, is going to update the code. If I go and paste the code here, so I don't have any code here, and paste the code from me, here we go. This is the actual how it's going to look like. So from here, I can go and change things around. For example, instead of saying potential customer name, I can say customer first name. I can say customer last name. So I can get the code, paste it here, do the changes, and bring it back. So here, for example, I have Office 365. I have multiple options here. And in the choice set, I can add another choice set, and I call it security, for example. And it could be security for here. So I can change it any way I want. And when I'm happy with it, it's easier for me to do it. Control A, like I did for the previous one, copy this, come back here, let's delete all of this and paste this. So I'm basically, this is an easy way for me to do it. And now I am going to bring back some of the dynamic fields. So some of the dynamic fields here, they've already been populated. So I'm just gonna do this. So first is, it already has some variables, the AC lead first name. So all of those are available here. It's very, very similar to what I did before. You can see here, this is the actual first name, last name, all of them are already here. So this is the AC lead first name and last name. So all of them already been predefined for me in the sample code. So all I have to do is reference them. So go last name and then email, and I'm gonna go into the phone, and then I'm gonna say interests, what's the actual interest of the actual leads. And from here, I can say the AC lead product interest. So this is now, I'm saying post and wait for a response and replace update the message with this particular message. So I'm gonna go and save it as lead generation. I'm gonna save it. And what I'm gonna do from here, after it's saved, I'm gonna manually run it, just because I don't wanna go into Dynamics and actually run that. So I'm gonna go and click on run. Here it's gonna tell me that it's going into Microsoft Teams, click on continue, run. And if you see here, it is running. If I go into the actual flow itself, it will show me basically here. It is waiting for a response. Nothing's going to happen until I respond back. So if I go back into my general. Here we go. This is it, posted it here. I'm gonna go and say Mike, email address. And these are the actual products that the actual user is interested on. I can click on both of them and click on submit. And here we go. It is going to update it, and it's going to say it's been submitted by Megan. These are the details. And this is the important part of replacing the card information. Because if I don't do that, it is going to just update that page without replacing the message. And how does it work? So I come here, this is completed. Let's say I don't have that option. Let's say I don't have that option, and I say, for me, I want to delete this. Let's delete it for now. Let's say I don't have this, and let's say I don't say update. What's going to happen in this case? So if I don't select this and I save, it is going to send the information. If I go back into the actual flow and submit it again, so I'm going to run it. It's running. Run the flow. If I come here, it's posted the information and waiting for a response. So if I come back here we go. This is the previous one that I submitted. This is a new one. And whatever the phone number is, I click on security. If I don't do an update, if I click on submit, it has submitted the information, but as you can see, nothing has been updated. So someone else that is part of the team that comes here and see it, it's going to say, hey, what's going on? I'm going to try to submit it again, but it's already been submitted. It's not going to work because we can see here that the actual flow has completed. So always definitely go into and make sure that you update that. So if I click on edit, that option again, you definitely want to update that and make sure it is a yes. And the last thing I want to show you is what I call embedded AC designer. This is really, really cool. So I'm going to spend a couple of minutes here to talk about it. Embedded AC designer. If I am, so let me save this and get out of this flow. What about, so now what we talked about, I'm going to go into the adaptivecards.io and then go into the designer, build it here, copy the code, paste it into my Teams action, my flow action for Teams, and run it. This is fine. I'm not building any code. What if I can do it from inside the team itself? How cool would that be? One thing is, you have to make sure that your Power Automate settings, you have the experimental features turned on. So you go click on the gear icon, you go to settings, experimental feature on, click on save. And once I do that, let me go and create a new action inside this. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a new step, Microsoft Teams, and say adaptive cards. Look what we have here. We have a button called Create Adaptive Cards. This is really, really cool. So I can click on it, and I can build now the adaptive cards within Flow. I don't have to jump to another website, which is really, really, really cool. And then you can see the payload is at the bottom. I can click on it. It will open it up for me. I am building the exact same one. As you can see, it's already pasting the top two things on top here. So it's formatting it properly. I can go and start building exactly the same thing I did. It's really, so I can do an on action, open URL, exactly what I did before. I can do, can have to remove all of this. Here we go. So I can design it inside here, and once I'm done, it is inside my flow. So this is really cool. Things are improving and getting much better. So I'm really excited about it. Hopefully you'll be excited as well. So this is a really, really cool way that you can still build an adaptive card inside of Power Automate instead of jumping around. And with that, I want to leave you with a couple of things. One is best practices on adaptive cards. Keep the noise down. Make sure you don't post a lot of information, because a lot of information people tend to not read it much. Test it on mobile. If it works, fine. Just don't assume that it's going to work. Make sure that your graphics are loading properly and they scale to the actual mobile as well. And avoid including text and graphic, because basically if you include text and graphic, it may not be very readable, it may not be very accessible for people who really can't view it properly. And some of the information here I'm posting, this will be available, this PowerPoint presentation. So I have some information, about where to go and get the adaptive cards. So adaptivecards.io/explorer, the Power Automate. There's a lot of public templates. Go and sample with that code. So it's a lot of sample there. So let me check on the actual questions. I missed where he got the code from. Pulled it down from that code. I pulled it down. Answer the question from the chat. I pulled it down from here. So from let me just get out of here. My presentation mode, and I'll copy that for you into the chat. The sample code, I got it from. So you can go into those create adaptive cards with Power Automate. There's a lot of sample code that you can get there. So you can definitely get that code from there. And with that, thank you again for being here. Pleasure to present to you. My contact information on the screen if you want to reach out to me. Any question you have, I'll be very happy to answer them. Thanks again.
Well, that was great. Thank you so much, Mike. That worked out.